In this video, I'm going to show you how to export an assembly file to the Nest tool. We're going to create and amend a nest study in particular so that we can create a nest to cut different parts of plywood using a circular saw. And we're going to then import your nest to a drawing file. We're going to nest it so we can work out how to cut out all these bits of plywood in the most efficient way. If I was doing the the drawer here, you'd want to nest this one so that you can laser cut it and get the best tessellation for the laser cut. So for here, the storage, we're going to nest this assembly. So firstly, come up to the storage here and the highlight, this storage at the top here, the name, and then right click on it and go to create nest. Now from here, you want to change the default to millimeters, and so that it opens up in the correct file for us. So now it's found all the different kind of solids that you had, all the different parts that were in that assembly, and we're going to say yes to sourcing the materials and putting some generic. It didn't quite know what ones were generic there, and because we hadn't labeled them correctly, we're just going to now click OK, and that now takes a little bit of time to actually bring in, probably 5 to 10 minutes on my computer, maybe less for yourself depending on the part. So I'll pause it here. Okay, once it's brought all your different parts in, it looks like this for me, and it took maybe 5 minutes. Okay, so I've got the base and the sides and the top. It also added in like these little parts here, the acrylic part and one face of those kind of 3D printed parts. So these parts are not really usable for me, especially in this nest where all I'm trying to do is nest up these different bits of plywood to be able to cut them out in the best way on the table saw. So let's look at how we can work with this file. First, go up to the process material library, and in here you'll see it's kind of got the original generic kind of material and how it thinks it's going to pack it, and then these different files for all the other parts as well. So we're going to look at these parts here, the kind of plywood ones. So we can look at this plywood here, and it's brought it in a 6mm thick, which is correct. It's going to kind of thinks this is the length and the width. So our normal sheets of plywood come in at 1240 by 1240. So if I wanted to, I could come either there or in here, and I can change that to 1240 tab 1240. I'm actually going to keep it at 600 because I'm going to sort of imagine I've got half a sheet of plywood that I'm cutting up, and so that has got it correct under this packaging tags as length and width. And then nesting, the important thing for here is this kind of separation. So item separation here that I want to change is going to be 3mm, and that's because the blade on the circular saw is 3mm. Now you might have highlighted these rotate 90, 180 and 270. That means it can rotate it in any way for the best possible nesting kind of setup to make it most efficient. So we're going to click OK on that one, and the rest, I'm not too worried about the rest because I'm not going to use any of these in the actual study that we create. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to click OK there, and then I'm going to come over to the nest properties. Now sources, well, we don't need to use that because we've brought it all in already. If we hadn't, we would click on source and click on this source files here, and you could bring in some DXF files there, but we've done it already. It's taken those different faces. Come up to your nest properties and you can kind of see how that is all done. Now bind means that it has to be allocated to a particular material, and you'll see under the create nest study, which is what we're about to do now, we're going to create a nest study. What shapes do we want to include? So we're going to come over to here, and we're not going to have the bottom ones, so the inserts, the feet, the phone holder, the support bracket 1 or 2, but we are going to have these plywood ones. Okay, and the packaging, this is where it's bound. So packaging 2 is the plywood finish, and I think that bind basically allocates it to this particular one on here. All right, so that's set up, and if you set that all up correctly, then that should just be all right. We're going to sort of do it up in the upper left. You could do it in the lower left if you wanted to, wherever you want it. Don't worry about these settings too much, but we want to minimize the length or minimize the width or minimize both. Let's go with length for the minute. I'm gonna you can see it started to create this nest study one. Okay, let's go with okay and see what happens. So it comes across and there we go. It's created this nest for us. So this is the kind of pattern that it's chose to be most efficient with the length of what you're doing with 600 by 1240. And it's kind of worked it out. Now this is actually not that helpful for when we're cutting in a circular saw because we want to cut straight along there as a kind of nice cut. So I'm actually going to go and I'm going to right click and delete this and show you how it can be different with our setup. If you come over to Material Process Library, you'll go back to the packaging one here, plywood finish, all right? And when we go to nesting, we're just going to untick these rotate features for the moment, and we'll see whether that helps us. So now we've kind of unticked those, we can create our nest study, go back to our shapes, untick the files that we don't actually want to use. We're just going for the plywood ones, click OK, and there we go, perfect. All right, that's now taken our sheet. You can see it's taken slightly longer, but you can see I can do a straight cut all the way down here and a straight cut all the way down here, and then I can cut these two in separate and cut these three as separate files as well. Now you've created this nest of the different plywood parts and how to cut it out on here, you can actually bring this into your drawing. And you do it by coming up to your nest study, in particular sheet 2. All right, and we're going to right click on there and we're going to create a 3D model. So it looks a bit funny on mine. Hopefully it won't look on yours, but you've got this either multi-body part view or assembly tile, and that's the one we actually want, the assembly tile, for the purposes of this, bringing it into a drawing. I'm going to click OK, and that's now created basically the plywood backing, the kind of the big sheet that I had, and these parts that we're going to cut on here. All right, so I'm now going to save that in our storage assembly part here, and we're going to go nest 6 sheet. That's okay. All right, and we're going to save that. Okay, now that we've got that saved, we can go back to our drawing. I had it set up before the different kind of orthographic drawings, but if you want to set up just a particular file labeled with the dimensions for maybe a cutting list and then maybe a plan of how to cut it, this is what would be helpful to have that sheet on. So now I'm going to go to base. I'm going to find the nest that I've just exported as on here. So click on there. We're going into the storage file. There we go. There it is, nest 6. That's the file I want. Let's open it up and see what happens. Yes, it's put the front view on correctly for me, so I'm going to click that. Did it do it? And click OK. There we go. Now that has got that kind of template on there, I'm going to bring it over here like so. And I can start to dimension this if I wanted to. So I could maybe come over to annotate and dimension from here over to like here, if that's the helpful dimension for you, and you can kind of see where you want to cut that line with those with a saw. So now we can dimension it up as you would like, but also interesting about this is you can now insert a parts list. Again, we're going to select the view like that, click OK, yes, and we can just put that one under here like that. Now this, what you'll realize, the kind of item numbers are not the same as the item numbers up here, and that's kind of important, just to, I think, maybe settle that and get it right. So I'm going to kind of double click on this. If it's going to work, double click. Let's try it again. There we go. All right, now having a look, being able to see both, I want the base to be item number 1 and the side one to be item number 2. So I'm actually going to kind of, it's because this has kind of put the plywood sheet in there, I'm going to put this as maybe we go up to 10 on here. So I'm going to put this in as 11 and change that to 11, the plywood stock sort of sheet. And then I'm going to find the base. There it is. And I'm going to put that in as item number 1. And then the side one as item number 2. Here it is. There we go. Side 2 as item number 3. And then top as number 4. And shelf as number 5. There we go. Now I think that's got it all right. Now what's interesting about this, it's still going to be in order, but I want it to show 1 at the top, A to Z. There we are. And we're going to sort it by the item. Click OK. We'll click apply there. You can see now it's reordered it nicely. Perfect. If you wanted to add in any dimensions, you could do that. We're going to leave that here, and just I think that's probably good enough for us. We'll just maybe drag that out a little. There we go. That feels good now. When you hover over I think the title, you can drag it over to the side. And now with that in place, we can now go and add in a balloon, and we can just select those pieces. Again, and you'll realize now which ones are, when you're cutting them, because they're all rectangles, aren't they? That's number 2, and this is no doubt going to be number 3. There we go. So we've got number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5